Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes put him up along with my man Brian Baldinger and, of course, Jason Canfora. This is In the Huddle. And, guys, we are this close to the start of preseason. All right, well, we're actually in it. But the fact is we're gaining ground towards the start of the season. And we're here to talk football with you guys. Now, that means camps are going on. We've got to talk about where Baldy's been, what's been going on around camps. And also we've got some other stories we're going to cover today. But make sure you like us, follow us, and subscribe. In the Huddle Pod on YouTube. You can watch us and tell your friends, guys. We talk all things NFL. Baldy, first and foremost, Jason and I have been knocking these out and talking about, all the things that have been going on. Meanwhile, you're like James Brown, the hardest working man in the NFL. Every time I turn the damn television on, you're on. How many camps did you go to? And tell us what you think you took from the camp visits that you had. I know you were about 10 or 15 or something like that. But let's start there with making your rounds these last couple of weeks.
Well, I've gotten to I've seen 10 teams. I saw the Bengals twice. I'm going to see the Jets in Washington tomorrow. Scrimmage up at Florham Park, so I'll see the Jets twice. But I've seen. I saw the Jets, Cincinnati. I saw Tampa, Jacksonville. I went to Canton, so I saw both the Bears and Houston. Talked to everybody there, from Caleb Williams, Ryan Poles, you name it. And then I went down to see the Giants, and then Buffalo, and then I was back up in Ohio to see Houston, who stayed in Ohio all week. They played Pittsburgh on Friday night, so they stayed there all week practicing at the same high school that Nick Casario went to. So they put a field in there, so they were up there. And then I went. I was in Cleveland. I'm like, all right, let's just drive to Pittsburgh. So I saw the Steelers yesterday. And Mike T, it's probably him, Harbaugh, and Andy Reid to see who still gets after it the hardest, because that felt like it was back in the 80s watching that Steelers practice yesterday.
Well, we know the rules have changed. CBA doesn't allow these guys to do as much as they want. We're talking about the head coaches. So when you see them pushing their guys and getting after it like that, it's always good to see. Jason, one of the things we were talking about, and listen, Baldy just mentioned the Hall of Fame game, and I just want to go back a little bit because we all were curious as to how these kickoffs were going to look, what it was going to, how it was going to play out. Is it really going to be an action play? How much, return action are we going to get? And I know that you had a chance to catch up with a couple of referees up there at camp with the Ravens. What did you take from it? And Baldy, I want to get your thoughts on this. But Jason, everybody's wondering what the hell these kickoffs are going to look like.
Well, we had a chance to chat with Clete Blakeman, who's been at this 17 years and has kind of seen it all and done it all to this point. And I would just say this is a brave new world in terms of these kickoffs. Like these crews are just still figuring out where to even position themselves, like how to literally officiate it in real time to make sure they've got eyes and bodies where they need them, not just to watch everything that's going on in that engagement zone where the two teams are aligned so closely together. But then obviously, what happens when the ball is being fielded, there's an element of strategy or potential strategy to this that I think the officials are as interested to see how much of it comes into play as anyone else. I asked Clete, have they gotten you with USFL and CFL officials, or have they done anything to kind of engross you guys in this other than just the videos and stuff they sent you? And he's like, no, it's really going to be trial and error. We've got an open line of communication with the league office. If we're officiating one of these joint practices or just a team practice and we do things a certain way during the special teams period and we think it works, we're sending an email to the officiating department saying, here's what we did. They're like us. They don't know whether this is going to be a total nothing burger where most teams just say, just boot it out of the back of the end zone and let them start at the 30, right? Rather than get caught up in all this minutia. Or if certain teams are going to try to find a nuance or a loophole in those rules and try to do things that might allow them to get the ball at the 40 if they're the receiving team, or whether teams are going to try to scud certain kicks through that line or just above that line and have it bounce, or whether everybody's just going to pooch it. They there's a lot they don't know, and frankly, a lot I don't think they can know until these games matter. Because I don't know if the best special teams coaches who think that they have in practice sort of gamed the system, I don't know if they're going to put that on tape in preseason games. I just think a lot of that's going to be held back, right? In so much as anybody is really trying all that hard to find a loophole. Maybe they're not. Cleat said he has informal conversations with these teams as he's coming through, and they're trying to glean information. But at this point, as an officiating crew, they don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I got the same. I talked to officials at the Hall of Fame game, Jason. They thought they might reconfigure themselves in the second half of the game just to see if they can cover, because they had no players allowed to move until the ball is touched, all right, in the landing zone, and so players were moving just off of instincts and habits, and so players they flagged it once, but I've talked to defensive coordinators in this business, and they're telling me, like, they're living in fear that, the offense is going to start sometimes at the 40-yard line, and they're first down away from being in scoring territory. I've seen teams put running backs back there. I've seen, if you look at, Pittsburgh, they may put Cordero Patterson back there, in their return game. Talking to Danny Smith yesterday, special teams coach of the Steelers. You could put a guy out there to hold the ball, just if it blows off the tee. And he's the 12th man. He's got to run right off the field. They've got kicks. They've got provisions for onside kicks in the fourth quarter if you're down. There's a lot to this, but I do think that this is going to be more than a nothing burger, Jason. I think teams like Baltimore practice this more than the other team in the offseason. Nobody did more reps on it, but that doesn't mean they're going to be better at it. But I think we're going to see some big plays. Talking to Devin Hester in Canton, he would have loved to have seen this where you're directionally kicking this thing. You might have 5 guys who have nothing to do with being able to, cover that kick once it's touched and you can't move then. I saw one that almost got split in Canton. Like, it was one block away from going to the house. And again, like, these teams don't want these kickers making these tackles, and they may be in a position to do that. So I think there's a lot to this. And it's going to be, I think, a lot. I mean, it's going to look gimmicky, obviously, to start with. But we're going to see the return back in the game, and that's what they want.
Yeah, and I've been reaching out, to people before the start of camp. The thing I got, Baldy, is everybody's spending more time on this. These coaches are spending more time on the kickoff aspect than they ever have at a training camp. You've got your certain periods for those folks who know practice where you're going to work on, the kicking game. And that is what has me interested, because when coaches start worrying about that and spending more time in practice than red zone, defensive red zone plays and all the things that really matter in a game, it just tells you how important they think it is.
To that point, Carl, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals one day, they went 20 straight minutes on just that. I mean, I thought we were going to see, I was just standing there watching, and I'm thinking, okay, we'll get like 7-8 reps, move on to the next drill. There must have been 25 reps. Like, honestly, and they're just shuffling, players and coverage and first team, second team, all that. But they spent 20 minutes on it, and it was nonstop. And like, to your point, some teams are going to spend a lot more time on it. They think they, either from coverage standpoint or from trying to pop one. I know Austin Eckler, just watched him in preseason back in minicamp. Like, he was back there returning kicks. Yeah, it might be a running back position. There's a lot of things that have to really, in the next month, get figured out from every part of the standpoint, but I think it's going to lead to a lot of big plays.
Fellas, let's talk about this potential trade. Now, as we record this podcast, it has not happened, but it could happen as soon as we finish this podcast, and so we want to make you aware that Brandon Aiyuk is still a 49er. But what is the best landing spot? So 2 days ago, rumors started about the Steelers potentially being interested, and it really wasn't any credible sources. Then yesterday, it comes to surface that, in fact, the Steelers and the 49ers were talking. Then the Browns and the Patriots are allegedly involved, and now the Patriots are saying, hey, we're out. We don't want anything to do with this. What is the best landing spot potentially for Brandon Aiyuk, Jason?
Well, here's what's going on. This isn't just business. This is personal, and it's been going on a long time, and the team is very aware of where Brandon Aiyuk would most like to be. And he'd like to play for Mike Tomlin. And he and Jaden Daniels are very close, and he's made it, very clear that, hey, I'd like to go to Washington, play with this rookie quarterback, take that offense to another level. Now, the 49ers, I think, are not inclined to necessarily send him where he wants to be. They'd like to send a message to him that, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And there's a football trade involved in this. So as much as you think you have all the leverage, we can also control where you go because we have to agree to compensation. So they would prefer to send him to football Siberia, like New England or like Cleveland. But he doesn't want to play there, and he doesn't want to do a contract there. I don't believe that they can mend fences enough for him to go back to San Francisco. I think the hay is too far out of the barn. They've gone too far down trade discussions and allowed his agent to have discussions with 4 or 5. Whoever wants to come to the dance, you've got permission to talk to the agent about a contract. They should have traded him at the draft. I mean, and it was the same teams involved then, and that was the time to put this behind. But they got cute, and they're used to winning. They're used to getting the exact language they want in these contracts. They're used to getting agents to sort of bend to their way. It's not happened here, and the player has been willing to drag this out into the preseason games, and now it's go time. I think he still ends up. I've said Pittsburgh all along. It would not surprise me if at the end of the day, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, it's easy. So I was just there all day yesterday, Jason.
They've been open to this.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you're just looking now. If you're just looking at the roster, all right, you got George Pickens, who everybody feels like can be a real star.
First 1,000-yard season last year. Yes.
And you've got Van Jefferson there, who's a quality guy, but he's not Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah.
And Roman Wilson is a guy they drafted that they're very high on, but he's hurt. Like, they have a real need. All right. They're missing a guy like that. So, it's not something the Steelers typically do. It doesn't really fit into their framework of how they operate. I'm with Jason. Like, if you remember when Tennessee traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles, they did it on draft day. Yep. And the Eagles did the deal right there. They got him the contract. They did the compensation. It was all done clean in a matter of minutes. Now, obviously there was some legwork leading up to it, but they got that deal done in the first round draft day. Like, by the time the first round ended, A.J. Brown was signed to a long-term deal as an Eagle. They got their compensation. It got done. But as soon as the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall, I'm like, they've got his replacement. It's not like, okay, of course you're going to pay Trent Williams, then we'll get that deal done. But they've got to pay the quarterback now. And they can't just keep throwing the money out to all the star players, which they have done. And I'm sure Brandon feels like, hey, I'm the next guy. Debo, McCaffrey, Warner, Nick Bosa. Like, they've done all, like, okay, I'm next up. And that's how he's thinking, which I understand. But at the same time, you got the quarterback next year that's got to get done. And that's going to cost a lot. And that's good. But you've drafted this guy to be that replacement at that position. You just can't pay everybody. And I feel like that's where they're at right now.
So while we're talking about Pittsburgh, and it'll be interesting to see if Aiyuk ends up there, I'm with you guys. I said it totally makes sense. The interesting thing about Pittsburgh, and Baldy, you were just there. And Jason, I want to get your thoughts, on this whole Justin Fields thing. Guys, everything I'm hearing, he looks good. And they like what they're seeing. And he's taking reps away from Russell Wilson. And as we went into this summer, we were talking about the financial commitment to either one of these guys. The Steelers, they don't have to play Russell Wilson because they owe him $50 million. So I'm at the point now, if you talk about Brandon Aiyuk potentially going there, adding to Pickens, that offense and the dynamically, looks different if Justin Fields is running these read options and stuff that, they can potentially do with him, it stresses the defense. And Russ can't do that stuff. So tell me where you're at on this, because I think, and I've been saying this, when the Steelers come to the Atlanta Falcons in week 1, it's not going to surprise me if Justin Fields rolls out there and is a starter in week 1 for the Steelers.
Well, I mean, first of all, Russell Wilson, had a bad calf and he missed practices. So Justin Fields got the reps. So Justin Fields, like, I talked to him yesterday. I talked to Russell. I talked to both of them yesterday. Mike Tomlin started yesterday's practice with what they call 7 shots. You put the ball at the 2-yard line, and it's off, and it just gets the whole thing just Like you do all your warm-ups, everything, get down the 2-yard line, who's scoring? Well, the first one to score was Justin Fields on a read option. Like he walked into the end zone. Like we've seen him do a million times, probably in high school down there in Georgia, and certainly at Ohio State, and at his time in Chicago. I mean, he walked in. Russell looked good though. Russell. I mean, they're splitting reps. It's not like, you go to New York and Aaron Rodgers gets every single rep. Right. You go to the Giants and Daniel Jones is getting every rep. But here, like they're rotating through, and I can't tell you who got more yesterday, one or the other. But they were both after practice, both working with Pickens, both working with the tight ends, both putting their time in afterwards. I mean, I think Mike Tomlin was looking at this thing, and whatever he said back, when the trades were made and the deals were done, that, I don't know, Russell Wilson's in the pole position. I think things have changed quite a bit.
Jason?
Yeah, when they signed Russell Wilson, I kept telling you guys and anybody who would listen and writing at the Washington Post, they're still going to get Justin Fields. Like Justin Fields is going to be traded. They're going to get Justin Fields. When all the stuff started, everybody and their mom saying Russell Wilson is the one, I kept saying, to be determined. They really like Justin Fields. Justin Fields brings an element to their ball control offense that Russell doesn't. And I'm just telling you, there will be a role for Justin Fields on this football team week 1. And I believe then, and believe even more strongly now, that if you do a pie chart of total snaps on offense in January for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the regular season, that Justin Fields will have at least one more than Russell Wilson, and perhaps way more than Russell Wilson. And they were open to the idea of seeing what it could look like with this kid and multiple running backs and being able to sort of chart their efficiency that way versus what it looks like Russell Wilson, who is not leaning into that kind of stuff, the mesh point and all that, nearly as much at this stage of his career as he was when he was winning Super Bowls with Seattle. And I just think that's going to carry the day. And whoever takes first snap week 1, I suspect if it's Russell Wilson, then it might be the first third down they face, or the first red zone package that they get into, or the first goal line package they get into. But trust me, Justin Fields will be playing football for them too.
Jason La Canfora, Brian Baldinger. I'm Carl Dukes. It's In the Huddle. Subscribe, like us. We talk all things NFL. While we're talking about this division, Steelers. Baldy, I know you saw him. Hi, my name is, and I'm talking about Joe Burrow because he looks like Eminem from back in the day with the new haircut and the dye look. But listen, if Joe Burrow's healthy, we know he's going to be a dog. And I'm curious to know what you saw there and what's going on in Cincinnati, because with all the conversation about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase not getting his money, at the end of the day, we know this thing goes one way with Joe Burrow. So is he back? Is he healthy? What do you know?
He looks fantastic. He said he's not 100% yet. Like he's getting there, but he's not restricted. They are trying to there's no pitch count with them, but they do want to make sure. Like this is the first camp he's ever had. First year there was the pandemic. Second year he's coming back from an ACL tear. Third year he had the appendectomy. Last year he had the calf. This is the first year he's ever gone. In fact, when I sat down with him, it's the first interview he's ever done in training camp ever. And so, it's a first for him right now. In fact, I think they're going to get him some reps in preseason games. The offensive line is humongous. Zeus is in the best shape he's ever been in. That's just not hyperbole. I mean, he was swimming and in the weight room. Like he stayed there all off season, and he conditioned himself. But Amarius Mims is just like he's just enormous. Like Trent Brown is there, but I got to believe Amarius Mims is going to end up starting. Like there's nothing that you don't like about the kid. He's a worker. He's big. He moves. I think he's going to be a good player for him. They like Zach Moss at running back. Joe Burrow, if you go back, his best game last year was in San Francisco against the 49ers, and he carved them up. The ball barely touched the ground that day, and that was against the 49ers. And that's what it looked like at practice 2 days in a row. Like, I don't care if he's throwing to Iosevich or if he's throwing to the rookie Jermaine Burton or if he's throwing to T or if he's throwing to, the new tight end. I mean, the touch that he has on the ball and how he sees the field is second to none. Now, the other thing that they just kept raving about the whole time is getting Von Bell back at safety. It's like Lou Anarumo, like he lost both Jesse Bates and Von Bell last year. Like he was as sad as you can be a year ago trying to replace those guys, and he never did. Von Bell back in this defense with Logan Wilson and, Jermaine Pratt and what they have on the outside, like they should be pretty good defensively. But Joe Burrow's the key. And I believe Jamar will get done. He's out there every day. He's in every drill, watching everything. He's not a malcontent or anything like that. But, he's going to wait until his deal gets done. And maybe he's waiting on CD. I don't know. Maybe Jason. But they're going to be a good football team. Very good team.
Yeah, that division's a beast. We've talked about it. Jason, from one quarterback to another, Lamar Jackson, I saw a quote where he was talking about he watched some tape and he thought he looked fat, and so it got him motivated to go get in better shape. And I'm looking at Lamar, and I'm like, dude, you're a specimen. Like, what are you talking about? You're a two-time MVP. Like, what better shape could you get in? Talk to us about Lamar and what's going on with the Ravens camp. Because, listen, we're talking Steelers. Baldy just told you what he saw at Cincinnati. What's happening with the defending, division champs in the Ravens?
Well, I mean, honestly, look, do you want to know what I think happened? There was the batted ball back to him that he caught in the championship game. And I think he probably watched that play 100 times and said, man, we're not.
I think Drew Tranquil caught him.
That's to the house.
I think
That's
it was
one of
Drew
the greatest playoffs. And I take it to the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I think he probably went back and watched a bunch of his other clips and said, I mean, to call himself fat is crazy. But I think last year he fortified himself in a different way than he did this year. Last year was the first year with Todd Monken. Are we still going to default to a lot of the Greg Roman stuff early on? Is this passing game going to click? If not, am I going to be sitting there, in the trenches, putting it in somebody's gut or keeping it? And I think he built himself for power, just in case. And he saw how this thing evolved last year. And he saw that there were times where maybe his explosiveness wasn't quite as twitched up as it was in the past. And so he built himself for speed. And he also knows he's got a 260-pound running back who's a freight train, who I saw in the high red zone yesterday take one cut and outrace everybody on that number one Ravens defense to the pylon from about 18 yards out. So he's got that now too, right? So teams are going to have to defend them differently. And I think Lamar Jackson himself, by design, will be even less involved in the run game during the regular season than he has been before. Look, the story of Ravens camp has been the defense is kicking the offense butt. And a lot of that was when Lamar was out. But even with Lamar back, he missed most of the first 2 weeks of camp. So his timing and rhythm and tempo, has been off. I think the Ravens are going to be a heavy team. I think they're going to have 2 and 3 tight ends and the fullback on the field quite a bit. I think it's going to be Zay Flowers, in terms of wide receiver. And if Bateman stays healthy, like anybody else, whatever. But I think it's going to be a bunch of big guys and a wee small guy. And we can run out of it. We can throw out of it. We can throw to any of our tight ends. We can throw to the fullback. We could throw to Derrick Henry. We could throw to Zay. I think they're going to live in 12 and 13 personnel only. Baldy, not really over 13 personnel because likely might be a wide receiver or likely might be a tight end. Pat Ricard might be the fullback. It might be the H-back. Yeah. Like they're building Kohler up. Like if Charlie Kohler can actually be a blocking tight end who can hold for 2 seconds and release and get out into a route, and now we've got 3 tight ends and Zay Flowers out there. Plus you've got to come at us with your heavy stuff. We're not getting your best athletes because we got a 300-pound fullback and a 260-pound running back on the field. So we're going to dictate that we get some of your lesser athletes, and then we're going to beat you up, or we're going to throw them.
You might have a 390-pound guard in there too in Falele. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out, but I saw him playing guard at minicamp, so this could be an enormous unit right here.
By the way, while we're talking about this division, Deshaun Watson will not play in the preseason opener. that was announced. No surprise there as we go around the National Football League. All right, fellas, we got to talk about this because I said the problem last year with the Eagles was Nick Sirianni couldn't fix it. When the problem happened, he wasn't able to correct it. That is a Super Bowl roster. They should have probably went deeper in the playoffs than what they did. And now today's story, as we do this podcast, is that the Eagles are trying to bridge this relationship between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. Okay, so he fires his staff, basically, right? Hires new OC, new DC, but Jalen and Nick are still there. Fellas, what's going on with the Eagles here? Because I think the only way they derailed themselves is by something like this internally happening. And, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN's reporting, look, there was some strife last year. These guys did not see each other or see on the same page. What's going on in Philly, and can they correct it is my question.
I think Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, the new offense coordinator, quarterback coach, are big upgrades over what they had last year. You talk to either players or coordinators around the league, and you ask them how difficult it was, if it was difficult, to defend the Eagles. And they're like, no, quarterback's reading the rush. They had no answer to the blitz. I mean, Todd Bowles basically said in the playoff game, this is what I see, and until they stop it, I'm just going to keep coming after them. I scripted every pressure that Todd ran at the Eagle. I ran out of space. He wasn't but then to this point now, Carl, Todd's it's all going to change this year, Baldy. Kellen Moore, he'll have a quick set, ball will come out fast. The motions and shifts will now be there. It won't be so vanilla like it was a year ago when they literally had no hot reads. They didn't have a sight adjust. The blitz came and you had a free hitter come at Jalen, and he just took off. And so Jalen was frustrated. Nick didn't fix it. You talk to DeAndre Swift, who I've seen, that's now gone. They stopped giving him the ball. He's obviously in Chicago now. He's thankful. I think the coaching is going to fix a lot of the offense. Defensively, they didn't play hard. They couldn't keep anybody healthy. But I think some of the issues they had last year, especially at inside linebacker, I think that still exists. I think there's still questions about the depth on the defensive line. I don't think Vic Fangio is in love that Bryce Huff can just stay in there and play every down football the way Hassan Reddick did, even though they're paying him that kind of money to be in every down. So there's question marks on defense. But I think offensively, this should be a much different looking unit than what we saw, especially with Saquon, than it was at any time last year.
Jason, is he on the hot seat if this thing goes, astray here early on with the Eagles?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, this is Philadelphia where, we're old enough to remember Chip Kelly right now. That went from the coolest, sexiest thing in football to, God, we can't wait to get this guy out of our building. They finally won a Super Bowl, right? And that head coach, what did he last? 2 years after that?
Yep.
Yeah, it's go time. I can tell you this. I'm already on the over week 1 in Brazil. You can still find 48 points. To Baldy's point, I'm not buying the Eagles defense. I am buying Kellen Moore with the Eagles offense. I think we're going to get points in Sao Paulo or wherever the hell they're playing that game. And it comes down to Kellen Moore, right? I was talking to an advanced scout the other day from that division about the Baldy deal. Look, there isn't a lot in Kellen Moore's past to say that he will run his offense through a running back. But they didn't get Saquon Barkley when he was drafted by the Giants. And it's well, you got to be careful, right? Can you get 2 contracts out of him? What's he going to look like his 5th year? This is for right now. When Saquon Barkley's healthy, he's one of the best football players on their team. And he's going to get a lot of touches, which takes a lot off the quarterback's plate, right? They're going to see more 8-man boxes than they've seen in a while when they're running back by committee or whatever. You're going to have to respect the fact that Saquon Barkley, with that quarterback, can beat you on the back in a bunch of ways. And that coupled with what they already have on the outside, if Kellen Moore is willing to be patient and to set people up and to use that running game early and late as a battering ram, it's going to be a prolific football team offensively, Baldy. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it's going to be a top 5 offense.
I mean, Saquon's never seen an offensive line like he's seeing right now. Like, he's never. Now, you got to figure out the right guard spot. It's still up for grabs, but, Landon Dickerson, Mailata, Lane, Cam Jurgens could be a good player. I mean, the tight ends can block. I mean, he's going to see some runways he never saw in New York. And so we've all seen that once, you get Saquon into the open field, like Katie bar the door. Like, he can run away from people. He's got good vision. At the line of scrimmage now, he's dodging, guys in the backfield as he's taking the handoff like it was so often in New York. Like, no, he wasn't put that foot in the ground, make guys miss type of back, but you give him a runway. And just the way you can use him in a variety of ways. Like, he's an excellent receiver. He's excellent in the screen game. I mean, I think he's going to have a fantastic season this year. I think, Saquon, Breece Hall, I mean, some of these guys are going to have big years just because they're built, the offenses are built around them right now.
I totally agree, Baldy. Before we get out of here, guys, I want to talk about these rookie quarterbacks as we start the preseason. We're going to get a chance to see some of these guys who may or may not play when the season starts. And just to refresh everybody's memory, 6 QBs taken in the first 15 picks, okay, in the draft. Caleb Williams of the Bears, we know he's starting. Jaden Daniels, we know Dan Quinn has named him the number 1 guy. Drake May, not so fast. Michael Penix has a guy named Kirk Cousins in front of him. He's not going to see a lot of playing time, but we will see him in the preseason. J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. So let's start in Minnesota, guys, because Kevin O'Connell is playing in the last year of his contract, and they're saying that they're going to do that. That him and the general manager in the last year of their deal. But what point do we see J.J. McCarthy? Because it doesn't sound like we're going to see him to start the season, although we'll hopefully see him in the preseason. Where are you at on Minnesota, Baldy?
Well, I think this is, Sam Darnold's getting another opportunity. I think he learned a lot in San Francisco. He's never been in a place with any kind of stability ever and good health. I think it's Sam Darnold's job to lose. I don't think there's any rush to get JJ out there. I think if they can allow him to sit for a little bit, it's only going to help him. Just getting up the speed of the game, to see the passing game that that Kevin O'Connell's going to employ. The play action looks that they're going to get with Aaron Jones there. The offensive line is quality. Like, I don't think there's I think Sam Darnold can play himself into a job and he can play himself out of a job. And that's where I'm at in Minnesota right now. And I could be completely wrong. I haven't been to Eden Prairie this summer, but that's kind of how I look at it from where I'm at right now. And just kind of knowing Kevin O'Connell a little bit, like, I think he's going to lean on the veteran guy. And Sam's a quality guy. He understands the game. I think he saw a lot in San Francisco about how this offense that he's running is supposed to be run. I would say he's got the leg up right now at this point.
You sold on JJ, Jason, turning into maybe a really good quarterback?
I'm completely with you, Baldy. No, my read on at some point, but that's not make or break now. This is not trying to prove, that our guy's better than yours. I'm going to show you week 1. He should have been the first quarterback. It's not. It's Sam Darnold's football team, and I think it'll be Sam Darnold's football team as long as it continues to make competitive sense and allow it to be Sam Darnold's football team. I don't think this is one of those where it's like, well, even if the vet gets off start, the owner wants to see the kid by midseason, so we got to start finagling that. Like, we got to start messing with the practice reps because, like, we got to show the kid off to save our jobs. Like, which it happens a lot in this league. Like, it happens all the time in this league. I don't think this is that at all. They stayed in the last year with what? How many different guys starting at quarterback? No, I think JJ is going to be a sponge and learn and get incrementally better. And Sam Darnold is there to help them try to win football games from week 1 till as long as they make a decision that it's no longer, feasible and we start playing the long game. That might not be that may turn out to be something that's pretty far off.
Fellas, I'm not hearing anything about Drake May in New England. Zero. Nothing. And I'm like, okay, we've heard a lot about Caleb. We've heard a lot about Jaden. We've heard a lot. Michael Pittman. Nothing. What's going on with Drake May? I mean, like, are we going to look back in 3 years, Baldy, and be like, yo, was that the right pick? I'm just surprised that Gerard Mayo has not said more about his rookie quarterback than what we've heard, and it's been minimal. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think that, Jacoby is a man. He understands. I mean, he went to Cleveland, and when Deshaun, things didn't work. I mean, Jacoby stepped in. He played very good football.
He did.
When he's getting the chance with a good team, a good offensive line like he had in Cleveland, he played good football. Jacoby, this is his second time in New England 15 right now. Like, he's seen all these different systems. He's sponged from everything. He knows his role. Like, I think he walks into a meeting, into the huddle, and he commands it. Like, I don't think Drake does that. I just don't. The team is not very good around him. They're still trying to figure out, their offensive line. They can say they're not interested in Brandon Aiyuk. You can't tell me. Like, I saw Mac Jones the other day. I saw Mac Jones, the other day in Jacksonville, and he was smiling. I'm like, when was the last time you were smiling, Mac? Like, it was just bad in New England. It was a bad team. It was bad personnel. Like, this is not a good team right now in New England. I think defensively they could be a good team, but I think they're a long ways away offensively right now. And I don't see Drake just stepping in the way, C.J. Stroud did last year, or the way Caleb might be able to do this year and elevate a team around him. I just don't see that right now.
Yeah.
You're not hearing anything, Carl. Carl, there's nothing to hear. It's Jacoby Brissett's team. Like you're not hearing anything because there's nothing you're going like. They can't out scheme you. They can't out talent you.
I'm like, there's nothing.
That's it. But it does. I mean, look, they're not set up to win right now, especially not set up to win with the kid who's just figuring out, how to discern the entire playbook and how to disseminate information. We got no time for that. Like, we're already playing from behind. Like, the quarterback's got to be somebody who's a trusted veteran. Like we got to get our talent level up in the next year to a point where when we do hand it over to this kid, he's got something of a fighting chance. Like, we need to evaluate who's a part of this thing for just as a placeholder and who's a part of this thing for the next 3 to 5 years. And when we get there, if we've brought the kid along the right way, he'll be ready to beat somebody out or just have the job handed to him a year from now. But Jacoby Brissett's there to try to keep this from being a complete dumpster fire, frankly. Like let's try not to lose 31-7 every week, boys. Like, that's just where it is.
All right. Yes or no before we leave. Guys, we're about to start the preseason. Oh, and this just in, by the way. Steelers list Russell Wilson number 1 on the depth chart today. He will not play in the first preseason game Friday against the Texans, but Justin Fields will play a couple of series. Again, we're recording this today, but that news just hitting as we were talking about those guys earlier in the podcast. All right. Yes or no? We're about to start the preseason here. Cowboys get a deal done with Dak? Yes or no? Baldy?
No, I don't think so.
Jason?
Jason froze, I think. Oh, there.
I think time's no longer on their side. Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones held that football too long, and he's about to take a sack, and it's going to be a $60 million sack, and that's what Dak's going to get somewhere else. Like, there's no hometown discounts. There's not that, like, it's out the door, and unless Jerry steps up and says I was wrong the whole time, Dak, and you have jumped to the head of the class. And we're going to reset the market for you now to prevent the Raiders or the Giants or whomever resetting it with you in February. Like, we're going to do that. We're going to do that for you right now. And we're going to go get seeded. And we're going to give you guys $100 million collectively per year. And away we go. Like, unless they do that, forget about it.
I'm with you guys. I'm a no as well. Baldy's a no. Jason's a no. We will see. But I did not think we'd be here, guys, starting the preseason and those deals not done. I just didn't. Guys, as always, Baldy, by the way, you headed somewhere this weekend?
Well, I am I'm going to this Jets-Washington scrimmage this weekend. I'm going out to on tomorrow. and I'm going out to LA doing all the studio stuff around all the games on Saturday and Sunday. So
this weekend.
I'll be out there. It's good. I mean, I'll have the rosters of all these teams, looking at all these kids trying to earn a spot, trying to do some evaluation from out there.
It's fun, man. Enjoy, football fans. Listen, I know it's preseason, but take it in. The start of the regular season is right around the corner, and we'll be back with you guys. We put out episodes every week, Tuesday, Thursday, usually Tuesday, Friday, depending on what happens, guys. But we are going to be here all season for you. Subscribe, like us in the Huddle Pod, watch us on YouTube, and follow us. Brian Baldinger, Jason Canfora, Carl Dukes. We'll keep you updated on everything that's going on. Fellas, enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Jason. See you guys.